Bonjour. So when I started doing videos for YouTube, I think definitely the first Doctor Who, listen to me making mistakes already, Doctor Strange film had come out, and I think the Multiverse of Madness was around that time, and yeah. Anyway, I don't want to talk about really too much. I'm a little bit going to talk about the first film, which did get a lot of stuff right, and I did like it. They plucked out, they moulded, which is what I like. If anyone watching has watched any of my other videos, I don't expect a literal translation. If anything, I'm against it. A literal translation. I want to see something new. I want to see it moulded into something different for real life. What exists on the page sometimes, it's a different. It is obviously a different medium. It just doesn't work. There's been some great book adaptations that people have turned into great films, and the same with comics, and etc. But what I kind of don't like. Well, let's get into it. What I did like. I mean, it was magic versus science. This is the first Doctor Strange film. I did like the casting. If you're going to look at Doctor Strange as he is in the comics, that was great. That was spot on. And Marvel have done some good casting choices over the years. They have done some good ones. And I think he's a good actor. He's not my most favourite actor in the whole world. But old Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange, I think you can nail it. Bit of gravitas. They had the Ancient One in there. They had Mordo in there from the comics. And the cloak, the way they, the use of the cloak was done well. I do think though they went into MCU. I think Doctor Strange was at the point where it was the tipping point where it was downhill into quip land. Everything had to be a quip. Everything had to be funny. Because there was some good tension and there was some good build up in Doctor Strange, and he was turning into a bit like how Tony Stark was at the beginning. He was an arsehole, but kind of like your lovable arsehole. And so was Dr. Stephen Strange before he gets his power. Goes off to the Himalayas and gets his powers, etc. But they just can't resist it now. They just can't leave it. They just can't give us a serious film that's just punctuated by a bit of levity every now and again. Even if it was when the cloak and the collars were up here, and I think it was one of the scenes towards the end where he's bleeding and the he doesn't notice and the cloth goes like that. It's thank you, or whatever it is he says. But by this point where the cloak is doing that, I'm kind of thinking, stop with the quips, man. Stop it. The stake. There's high stakes here. Dormammu from the Dark Dimension's going to destroy Earth, and you're laying down the quips. And the use of magic. Now I know this is good. Marvel is a corporation. Dismal Minus is a corporation, etc. And I don't know why I'm saying etc. a lot in this video. Anyway, forgive me. I'm going to try not to do that again. And I understand how they've got to make an hour and a half, 2 hours of family entertainment, and suit all ages. But I can't. The one thing that did great on me, and which is what I want to get to. This is the bit that did great on me, which we're going to get to in the comics. The wonderful, starting off with Steve Ditko, who co-created Doctor Strange after he co-created Spider-Man. Heavyweights. These creators, just the top. And he created a world and they did try and duplicate when we get towards the end of the Doctor Strange film. If this is your only exposure to this character, I did think they recreated it really well. And Dormammu in the comics was just a man, like a physically sized man, but with the face. But they did a good they had a good go of making him a bit. I enjoyed it. I didn't, you know, that non-literal translation of that character for the film. Enjoyed. I enjoyed how they did. Maybe too CGI heavy. I don't know why they've got to do everything CGI. I don't know why they can't have some practical effects and just enhance it with CGI. I don't know why they can't do that, because it certainly destroyed the second one from the very, very beginning. You know, multiverse equals CGI. Unless you're going to get that CGI spot on, which I'm afraid they don't at the moment, it ain't going to work. You know, because even the cloak, as much as I'm liking the cloak, and I like the way they did the dark, you know, the magical dimensions, I loved it. The Inception type magic was nice. When you had, what's his name, the bad guy, after Doctor Strange, and you know, was bending the buildings, and I like the way they done the rings with the all of that's was good to put on the screen. But what he ended up being is, oh, I know magic, so I'm going to make a magic weapon, and we're still going to have a fight. And that's where I was a little bit let down. No, I was a lot let down. I kind of enjoyed the film overall, but I was a little bit let down by the fact that, yeah, they're just making weapons and they're still having a fight. It's still fisticuffs. The ending was good. The ending was, and that's what I mean, it kind of redeems himself at the end. It redeems itself at the end of the film, because he tricks Dormammu. Spoilers. He tricks Dormammu. And, see, I always pronounced it Dormammu. And I know in the film it was Dormammu, which I found a little bit silly. But anyway, it's a silly name, isn't it? So, I lost my train of thought now. But anyway, I did enjoy that, the trickery at the end, the magic, the use of a magic trick, literally, to trick Dormammu into doing one. Nice. But anyway, so that's kind of like me trying to let you know where I'm going with this. But I kind of want to show you the real Doctor Strange that I really used to enjoy in the comics, because it was, even in the first issue, I mean, I have got some original. He appeared in Strange Tales, but these are delicate little babies. This one, his first appearance, he's in it. I'm going to go through this one. That's one of the more together issues I've got, and I don't really want to start dragging out a load of dusty old comics when I've got stuff like this, in glorious, glossy, you know, high resolution images to show kind of how dark it started. I mean, in this one, and I'm going to do a deep dive in a minute, but in this one, Doctor Strange, this is his first appearance, master of black magic. But Harry was a separate, the first of a new series based upon a different kind of superhero. I'm not sure whether they achieved that in the film. Certainly in the second one, it wasn't even his film, was it? It was just a kind of mishmash of all the modern Marvel stuff, all the crap. But anyway, let's stop talking about the films, and let's take just one quick thing before we take a deep dive into all the good stuff. Is I didn't hear anyone talking about the 1978 Doctor Strange film. Yes, Marvel fans, with an actor called John Mills. And I won't listen. I'm geekyOlhog. I know emphasis on the "ol," so I will not bore you with going into John Mills and all the rest of it. 1978, a Doctor Strange movie. There was a few bubbling around at the time. And it was around the time they did the Lou Ferrigno Incredible Hulk TV series. And I think Marvel was trying to get some traction. The Spider-Man TV series and all that. But people talk about Incredible Hulk and no one talks about the old Doctor Strange, bless him. And just one other thing before we do the deep dive is there is and it is on YouTube, a Jonathan Ross. This is for UK, I suppose US fans might know. I don't know how global Jonathan Ross, but he's an interviewer. He does the interview shows and all that, but he's a big comic collector in the UK, and he did a documentary in 2007, and it's got Neil Gaiman in it, Alan Moore's in it, and it's the searching for Steve Ditko, who was the co-creator, but some controversially say that he was the creator and Stanley embellished it a bit, which I can believe, but we won't go there. We're not going to go there into the controversy around that, because that's proper hardcore comic geek discussion that you need one-on-one with all your fellow geeks in a room. But that's well worth checking out if you are interested in Doctor Strange and the origins of early Marvel comics and stuff like that. And one tiny little side note, Jonathan Ross used to come into my comic shops when I used to have them, where mine were on the outskirts of London, and he used to come in and buy a ton of Simpsons stuff for his kids. I knew he was a big comic collector, but anyway, just a little bit of trivia for what I'd throw in there. Anyway, let's take a deep dive and let's look at how Doctor Strange has evolved over the years, and we'll see what you think after you've had a look, and see what you think Marvel have done in the films. I don't know, I just thought, let's call it an appreciation of Doctor Strange through the ages. Okay, starting at the beginning. And like I said, haven't got a lot of the original stuff, but this book, this gorgeous book, I don't know when they would come out. Just before we get into it, Steve Ditko done a lot of work. This isn't Doctor Strange. Just wanted to quickly show the 9-panel. This was back in the early 60s that he would have done this story in Strange Tales or Tales to Astonish. You know, Steve Ditko is more famously known for his work on Spider-Man. Let's face it, it's not Doctor Strange that he's known for. But I just thought it was interesting in this book that one of his earliest, this 9-panel, which many years later in The Watchmen, Dave Gibbons would not copy. Don't get me wrong, this is a standard format, but I just thought it was interesting to see and give you a little sample of Steve Ditko's early artwork. He always used to do this monstrous stuff and stuff like that. Right, let's get into it. Doctor Strange. This is the first story ever of Doctor Strange. In Strange Tales issue 110 and 1963. So look how master of black magic. You know, this is multiverses and all that, and quite a dark tale. Quite a dark tale of someone coming to him. It's very very reminiscent of the horror stories, the kind of 5, 6, 7 page yarns that all of the comic publishers at the time would be churning out, whether in a backup or just compiling, you know, like EC a bit earlier in the 50s. So, and this is quite I know they're saying at the beginning a new kind of superhero, like I said in my introduction. You know, here a different kind of superhero. I'm not sure whether this is a superhero setup at all. I don't know whether it's just the way that Stan Lee decided to sell it because he was high on, you know, Spider-Man, and I don't know how this coincides with all the Marvel stuff. But it's kind of, you know, even in his illustrations, it's just like a macabre 6-page horror tale, but with a magician in the middle of it. So we come on to his origin. His origin wasn't told till 4 or 5 issues later, and he's still the master of black magic. Which isn't important, really, the title. How did he get his powers and all that? And this is the origin that we see, more or less followed quite closely from the film. He's the surgeon. You know, the film did follow the origin nicely, to be fair. All right, they gender swapped the old one, but I didn't mind that. I didn't mind what's her name's performance in it. Mordo, it was race swapped. Yeah, it didn't really make a difference, to be fair to me. His character was slightly changed, to be fair, but again, it doesn't matter. So within 10 pages, you've got his first story and his origin, which, you know, but what I'm trying to highlight here is the kind of the darkness in it. There's no fisticuffs. It's magic. It's mysticism. it's trickery, whatever you want to call it. It's all about magic, which is what I do miss in the film stuff. Not that I look to Marvel anymore, Dismal Minus anymore, to give me anything near what I think is any good. This issue, so I'm going to show an original issue here. So we're on issue 126 now. So I don't know what year we're in. We're probably in 65 or 66 now. But just want to highlight, right here, this is how Steve Ditko used to envisage these otherworldly dimensions. It weren't called multiverse back then, thank God. That's a very modern conceit that I am getting really fed up with. But it suits Doctor Strange. The way they're using it across everything now, just to excuse everything and erase everything, I'm finding really irritating. But I think the film did a good job of recreating stuff like that. And again, you know, like I say, this is a couple of years later, and we have still got, it's still, this is Dormammu. See, in the film, it was just that big head, floating head, CGI head at the end and all that. But I didn't mind it. Look at this wonderful stuff. This is what I wanted to show you guys about how he's kind of set the template for this stuff. This comes from all the monster stories that he would have drawn tons of for Marvel. He didn't work exclusively for Marvel, Steve Ditko. And how the image hasn't changed much over the years. I mean, he's got a blue cloak in these early stories. Let's see if we can spot when that kind of changes. But again, you know, you might be aiming a magical beam at this character. But again, it isn't fisticuffs. It's nothing to do. It's Dormammu trying to get the upper hand. But this is the bit I wanted to show. Clear. Now, I don't think this was her first appearance. It isn't far off. And I don't know why they didn't use, like, she was kind of like, I mean, she was associated with Dormammu. So that was kind of a really nice dynamic that they had going. You know, I like all this stuff. You know, again, it's all magical stuff. You know, the way he's disappearing, it like we can't see the rest of him. You know, it's just a kind of carpet element there, and she's thinking, what's she doing? Because she's like on Dormammu's side of it all. I love it, but I can't understand why Clea, and she would remain by his side for decades, an integral part of the storyline for decades. This is the 60s here. It's not up until this crazy decade that she's kind of been given the Doctor Strange mantle, and I know he's coming back, I understand that, but don't get me wrong. But why she was ignored completely in the film, I don't know, because that dynamic between Doctor Strange and Amy McAdams' character in the film, if they'd have mysticked that relationship up, and we all know why she was there, to, you know, so someone could be threatened, and we can, you know, because he's the Sorcerer Supreme, you think, oh, you know, how can we hurt him? Well, you know, bring someone in that he loves, and, you know, he's got to protect her, or, you know, they can, and that's what happened with Clea a lot of the time. Dormammu again, you know, this is, you know, he's tricked, you know, it is with me you should deal. He's tricked him. You know, he's used there's all this lovely stuff here, look, straight out of Ditko's brain. Just to draw that, just to create, just to think, just to bring this in onto a page with ink and paper. I love it. That's what that's what I used to really enjoy with the Doctor Strange stuff. Well, and still do. So after Steve Ditko was on the title. He was on the title for a long while. The next master to master the mystic arts was Gene Colan. Now we're getting to the end of the Strange Tales run, and again, I haven't got them all. I have got a couple here to show you, but I just want to highlight Steve Strange's work on top of Steve Ditko. you know, this is the, you know, we don't know what's going on here. This is when covers sold comics. That's a little sketch, like a little, but this is what I really wanted to, you know, he was a worthy successor to Steve Ditko's style. Just drink that in for a minute. You know, just, he was definitely the worthy successor. I think so anyway. And Gene Colan would be, he'd work on Daredevil as well. You know, here's Clear again. Original page. You know, he's in a bubble over the sea. You know, no, he did the nice stuff. Here's Dormammu again, with all the psychedelic, you know, stuff going on. Obviously, Ditko laid down. So, and we're still talking late 60s. Gene Colan. This is a book just on his artwork, but I only really want to get into the Doctor Strange stuff. Look at this. Taken from the pages of the comic. Now, whoa, man. These were posters that were done in the early 70s, under black light posters that were, you know, quite fashionable. There was like a little craze of them. So yeah, I just thought I'd show you. And anyway, but so Strange Tales came to an end, and these would have been after. I think these would have been after the end of Strange Tales, because he would go on to his own title. But what they did before that, because obviously Marvel was a powerhouse of publishing under Stan Lee, but it was a business and it had to earn money. So what they did is the numbering here is still Strange Tales, like I've been showing you. 126 I showed you earlier on. Number 110 was his first appearance. So 66 issues later, what they've done is they've just called Strange Tales Doctor Strange so they can tell the popularity of the character. Here's Clear again, like I say, 50 issues later. And look at this artwork. Even this is what we want. This is what I used to love Doctor Strange for. But this is what, you know, Roy Thomas writing it as well. And Tom Palmer on top of Gene Colan's inks, and they would go on to do Tomb of Dracula a few years later, which was a marvellous look at even the panel. You know, Gene Colan was an artist, very, very well suited to the and I pointed at now his cape's now this is the familiar cloak we've come to know and love. So over those years, the evolution, but we've still got Clear in her purple outfit and all the rest of it. And like I say, she would be by his side, you know, more than Wong. They chose Wong, and we know why. And there's nothing wrong with that. The Sons of Satanish. It's great stuff. Look, he's using the Eye of Agamotto and all that. And one thing I would say is that Stan Lee did have a ball with the hoary halls of Hoggoth, and, you know, by the bearded whatever it is, but, you know, Roy Thomas wasn't heavy on all of that stuff. He would just kind of, he chilled it out a bit. I mean, there's a bit of magical what's it going on there, you know, a magic spell. He's got a bit, you know, an incantation, but other than that, but again, what we now call, well, I'll call it the multiverse, all right. And like I showed you the reprint of this page earlier on, you know, with the bubble thing going on and all that. There's no fighting. There's conflict, but there's no physical fighting. Well, very rarely. And Clear was always done, you know, exactly what the audience wanted, you know, something easy on the eye and etc, etc. And I don't see nothing wrong with that, to be fair. I wouldn't have seen nothing wrong with that in the film. I just think they missed a trick. I didn't mean to say that on purpose, sorry guys. I think they missed a trick not using Claire. Oh, I'm well proud of myself for that one. Mr. Trick not using Clear as the way of getting a film audience to follow someone human, non-superheroic through the story, you know, rather than just Amy McAdams' character. But nevertheless, like I say, I just wanted to show how Gene Colan, how Strange Tales had morphed into this, in, you know, with his name over it. And look who's turned up, guest starring Black Knight, that they're going to resurrect. And again, even the lettering on it is nice. Gene Colan, Tom Palmer. And everything, every element in it. Now, you know, you can't get away with gloves like that, but I think the costume in the film was nicely done. Was a good design. I mean, the cape wasn't such a at the forefront in these stories. There was something about it, but it wasn't. You know, it was never as mad as it was in the film. But I didn't mind it until it started getting a bit silly. But again, I just want to accentuate the mystical element of it. If it needed fisticuffs, like in this issue, if it needs fisticuffs, you bring in Black Knight and he'll have a sword fight or something, won't he? Like with this character, you can see where they're going with it. It's still the Sons of Santanish. But that's what they did. But that like I say, I won't keep going on about the film, but look at that, it's wonderful stuff. It's wonderful stuff that the artists had to come up with just to make his multiverse. You know, whether it was even panel designs going in there, you know, all this mad stuff going on. What is all, you know, great. It's great. You know, panel structure here. Just everything's going off the rails. You know, the bad guy sitting on some kind of rainbow vortex. Now this one's on to what's it's. You know, you think of how many films have used that kind of stuff. Anyway, so that is late 60s. That was 1969. In the early 70s, he turns up in Marvel Premiere. And so, you know, Doctor Strange, even though his name's on it, it ended with issue 182. He turns up, and now this is Frank Brunner doing the artwork. In Marvel Premiere in 1973, and this is glory. Brunner could be accused of being a bit of a Neil Adams clone, but look at Steve Englehart and Mike Friedrich writing it, and Frank Brunner on the art. It don't get no better than that. 1973, early 70s, Marvel were just unstoppable with their creative team. Here's Clear again. This is what I mean about, you know, the Hulk kept Betty Ross to a certain extent. I mean, I know the modern stuff don't, but you know, the first couple of films they kept old Betty in it, didn't they? Like I say, shame. A shame. Look at this glorious artwork, and it was always about transporting us from New York to somewhere mental. Whether it was back in the past, it was all, you know, they had, look at this, lovely stuff. Frank Brunner, you know, he was a great artist, and he got better and better as well. If you're not familiar with his work, then go track some down. And it's all going to be early 70s. I don't think it's going to be over the top, but you know, stuff like this still used today. Is old Mordo there? Looks like it, doesn't it? Old Mordo's back. Damsel in distress. But she's not a damsel in distress. You know, gives you living gargoyle, gives you it all. Gives you it all. So that was in 73, and that must have been a tester. Like I say, we're Strange Tales, you know, as a publisher, they had to know what characters were working and what characters weren't. You know, nothing had changed much in the early 70s. And Brunner's on it again. Refined his style, you know. He'd done a good few issues of Marvel, Doctor Strange in Marvel Premiere. But this is fantastic stuff. And this is where I got on. This is where I got into it. So I would have been reading the black and white British reprints. But this is the era. What I'm saying is this is the era where I got on the Doctor Strange in his own comic, issue 1. So he's done Strange Tales. He's done Marvel Premiere, and he's bummed around for a bit. But now they've decided, no, now's the time. 1974, Volume 1, Number 1. Englehart on the writing, awesome. Brunner, full artwork. Yeah, I know. Dick Giordano inks, but Frank Brunner, artist. Gorgeous. And look, brooding. You know, almost Batman-y. Look, in a way, look, it's almost like... and that's just an observation off the top of my head. But what I'm trying to get at is, it's not about punching. Here's Clear again, straight away, number 1. And I'm banging on about Clear. I must be a number 1 fan. If there's any Clear fan clubs out there that want to give me free membership. And again, look at this stuff. straight out of Cinderella. I just thought this was lovely. I thought Frank Brunner was a great artist. He's a great artist. It's all mean, moody, shadowy. Like Gene Colan again. This is a worthy. This now I'm pointing it out. You know, it's a worthy successor to Steve Ditko, and then Gene Colan, who come along with that shadowy. You know, is these Neil Adams-ish. This is very Neil Adams-ish stuff, but I still like Frank Brunner's artwork. I'm not calling him a clone or anything. I mean, I don't know whether he was in the same studio as Adams at the time, Neil Adams. If anyone wants to do a little bit of research, or who knows, could tell me, that's fine. But so this is Doctor Strange 1974, and I think this is where he's at the peak now. From here onwards, I think this is where you get to know, to come and know. You know, look at this. This is pure. You know, this motif here would be used a lot in Frank Brunner and be taken from, you know, and used in successive issues. Stuff like this is nice. Look, not quite as psychedelic as the Ditko stuff. I mean, I think the Ditko stuff nailed it with this multiverse stuff, and wherever Doctor Strange was going into, I think Ditko had a way of. I don't know what it was with him. That he as much as Gene Colan is my favourite artist. He just had a way of I don't know, just showing that you know, this stuff here. Yeah, it's pretty far out, but not in the same way as Ditko. Not in the same way as Ditko did it. I don't mean. Right, now we are going to take a real huge jump forward now. We're going to go massively forward, because this run of Doctor Strange kind of petered out late 70s. And I think the character languished. All he would do is they had a couple of series in the. They had one volume in the 90s, which I didn't think much of. And he was always kind of like a bit of a backup character if any story was set in New York. Now Galactus obviously turns up a lot in the FF, but just to show you the kind of power the guy wields. And what an abortion the Doctor Strange Into the Multiverse was. Love John Byrne's artwork on Fantastic Four. I know this is a little side note. I loved this stuff back in the day. I really, really did. This is early 80s stuff, this. But so he'd only be appearing, but there wouldn't really be, you know, he kind of did languish, and I know Marvel had been good at doing, you know, apart from Spider-Man, they kind of really didn't have a huge A-list of heroes. And Doctor Strange certainly weren't in the A-list of Marvel heroes, but the power he had, he's the one in this issue. So you got the Avengers in it, because Galactus turned up in New York, you know, FF, Reed Richards, fighting. Look who turns up and sorts him out. Not Thor, not Cap, you know, Daredevil, Spider-Man, you know, like, bit too much for us, kind of like, we'll sit back. Here we go, bosh, in he comes, boy, what up? Down he goes. Galactus falls. You know, working in conjunction with the Thing, obviously, the Fantastic Four, because it's in their comic. But it was down to him. Yeah, and then he's gone again. He was just a backup for, you know, he was a backup in other people's books. This was quite an interesting graphic novel. So Marvel was getting into a bit of the old graphic novels in the late 80s, early 90s. This was a nice matchup. Doctor Strange and Doctor Doom, and the story is about you know, Roger Stern, a great look at the team up. Mike Mignola, who went on to do Hellboy, a lot of Hellboy, you know, inking himself though. Mark Badger's, you know, I won't say I'm the biggest fan of Mark Badger's inking on Mignola's artwork, but nevertheless, this was a great story, and the two doctors having to get together, and even with Doom, you know, it's a story to save his mum. You know, we're in that, obviously, Latveria here. It's out in, you know, in the Sanctorium. I just thought this kind of came out of nowhere. I've got to say, this came out of nowhere. But I've got to say, he's a character that I enjoy these self-contained stories more. I think he's a character that, you know, Mignola with his blacks, he wasn't the best. This was a fantastic story. The artwork wise, Mignola, it would suit Hellboy to have it all black, but I do miss the, you know, that the imagery of the mysticism of Steve Ditko and Gene Colan, like back in the 60s. And when it's not overdone, you know, like here, I mean, this is kind of Ditko-esque, if I can say that, but it's still not Ditko, and it's not Gene Colan with the panels. But it's a great romp for story, bringing two characters together like this, and Mephisto. And again, don't know why Mephisto ain't turned up anywhere. I really don't know why. I think Marvel are overthinking the whole Christian tradition of the heaven and hell and all that. I think they're really overthinking it. Just get Mephisto in. He's a supervillain, and just do that. You know, stop fighting around. But so this is just an oddball, a good romp down into hell with Mephisto. You know, trying to get Doctor Doom. You know, it's all like he's up to no good, and you don't see it around a lot. And do you know what? Another book that I don't think is on many people's radar is What Is It That Disturbs You, Stephen, by one of my favourite artists of all time, P. Craig Russell. His artwork suits Doctor Strange. I would love to have seen him done a load of Doctor Strange. Did everything from look at this opening page for quirkiness. Look at this stuff. You know, it goes back to what Ditko was doing in the city. You know, 50 years. This was 97, so 30 years previous to this, what Ditko was doing. And I just think his art style is just gloriously suited to Doctor Strange. I don't know about you lot, and it's all mean, you know, it's all moody. You know, here we go, look, all the rubbish being lifted up by the wind. Here's a bit of rain. Look, here's the dark shadows of the Sanctum Sanctorum. Love it. I love it. I don't know. I just really loved this book, and it was the guy P. Craig Russell first done the art for this book back in the early 70s. You know, we're talking about around the Marvel premieres that I showed you, around that era, and he'd done a certain amount of pages or something. They said that they'd put it in an annual, but never did. And this was literally 20 years later, 25 years later. This saw the light of day. That's really real potted history. It's a bit more of an interesting story behind this. I have done a video on P. Craig Russell's artwork with Neil Gaiman and Sandman, but his artwork on Doctor Strange is, I think it kind of harkens back to the, look at these little creatures and stuff, and this is beautiful. I could gush a bit. Look, here's a few little light-hearted moments which we don't mind. We don't mind. I know I was banging on earlier, you know, about the Marvel films, but they just do it. You know, they get. It's like someone who you say, "Oh, I think you're funny," and then from that moment on, they just need to be funny all the time, and it's grating. Look at this again. This goes back to that motif that Ditko that used, and I'm not saying it was exclusive to him. Dick Topless. Marvellous. Little homage there, the eye of Agamotto. You know, look at this stuff. Of course it's Dick Topless, where he's going. What is it that disturbs you, Stephen? You know, he's got this itch he can't scratch in this book. And, you know, he'll... Look at this. And this is the naughty harbinger of his ailment. And then, you know, mystical magic ensues. Here's a Wong, bless him. He's stuck there. No, actually, no clear in this one. I've been banging on about her all of the entire video. No clear in this one. Perhaps it would clash with, obviously, you know, this character's and her machinations. And I loved it. I love it when P. Craig Russell does the lettering as well, and that fits into. He did Elric comics a long while ago, which I'm thinking of doing. Look at this, beautiful art. Look at just the flow of that cut. Look at that. I don't know. I just love this stuff. He's just a proper. He's a proper artist that we're lucky does comics. That's the way I look at it. And this is everything for me. This is perfection for Doctor Strange, the character. All of this, and this is him just being the proper artist that I spoke about with figure drawing and all the rest of it. But never loses sight of storytelling. Never ever. And this is the story of this what we think is the villainous character, but this is the story that she went through. You know, blah blah. Reminiscent of. Now I'm thinking about it, this is reminiscent of, I don't know why I suddenly thought about it, of Maleficent, the film. This predates it, by the way, but this is very reminiscent of it. And anyway, I'll leave it there. I think you get the point. And look, I love it when the letterers get involved, everything, you know, by the Vishanti, you know. This is back when Stan Lee was having a ball with the character. And I know it's a big leap. Like, I've kind of leapt 10 years, but that book there is 97, right? This one, huge controversy. Let's get into it. This one, right up to date, bang up to date about a month or two ago. I didn't do it in my weekly reviews because, do you know what? I was kind of been planning this Doctor Strange and P. Craig Russell, different videos, you know, just things to talk about and waffle on about. Now I've got my own channel, and I didn't review this in my normal weeklies because I think, from what I see of this, it's very polarising. But I've got to say, if anyone was going to take a risk with something, I like the way they've lettered it in the old-fashioned style, and it's tiny. I don't know why they've done that, but everything about this seems to be winding a lot of people up. Like, it really seems to be annoying people. And this art style, I've got to say, what I've just showed you from that previous book, and I know this is a leap of 20 years, of 25 years actually, the in-between of these two books, the in-between moments of these two books, is nothing to write home about. I mean, Doctor Strange in the 90s, I've got to say, I kind of got the books, but, you know, it's one of those where you're being a completist and you're just... But why I've kind of fast-forwarded right up to date is that, look at this stuff. This is what I've been talking about. All the way from Ditko in the early 60s. And now we are nearly 60 years later. I'm not saying he's riffing off Ditko. This is purely Tradmore. And I do like a writer-artist. This is one issue, I've got to admit, not a lot's going on, not a lot makes sense. It's just a setup for the story to come. But, my God, is he riffing off of P. Craig Russell, who I just showed you? I've got no qualms with that. No one ever replaced P. Craig Russell. A bit like when I was saying earlier on about Frank Brunner being a bit of a Neil Adams, not clone. That's a bit derogatory, but I just think this has got the P. Craig Russell flourish to it, and there the similarities end. It's every now and again. Every now and again, there's a P. Craig Russell flourish. I mean, this one looks like Frank Miller, to be fair. It looks like something out of Ronin, the original, not the latest one. This is P. Craig Russell. But the rest of it, and you know by now, this is the stuff that I'm looking for. I think we all should be looking for. If you're going to send him into a multiverse to overcome something, I love it. I really do love it. I'm not so sure about the figure work. I think that's the only thing that he's got to flourish. All this you can flourish as much as you want. I'm not so sure when you flourish with figure work, you've got to be genius level. I mean, to do these kind of stuff, this kind of stuff with, but I don't know. I think it's distracting when you put like a ballet, a Russian male ballet dancer's body onto the bottom of Doctor Strange. I'm not sure about that, but everything else I love. That's just one of my minor criticisms, is his figure work. Everything else, I just absolutely look. He's getting psychedelic. He's bringing us a vision. Even this, and I know it's kind of like a bit of a modern trope, but I think Tradmore is bringing a nice modernity to it. I think, as well as keeping all of those well-worn. Look at this detail. It's all detailed stuff as well. Layered, literally layered. Going back to the wind, the wind-blown leaves and all that, just creating an atmosphere. Look, if you haven't bought this book and you're a fan of Doctor Strange, but you think these guys have spoiled it, please take my word for it. Either stand in a comic shop and have a better look at it, or just go and buy it. Just go and buy it, because I think when issue 2 comes out, I think issue 2, 3, 4. I hope. Well, I hope. But and I do believe that everything. This is pure P. Craig Russell. I think that everything will be coming to fruition. Everything he's setting up here. I'm hoping. I mean, if you get 3 or 4 issues of this, then no good. But if this is a setup for the later issues, then I'm all for it. I'm all for it. I mean, this is great stuff. And getting lettering into the storyline, look, I love it. Love that. And just for that one panel, he's changed his art style. This is nothing like anything else in the whole book. And this is beautiful stuff. I thought this was really great. I know it's been polarising. This isn't your typical superhero standard fare. And it isn't perfect, but it's glorious for Doctor Strange. That's what I would say. I love the way he's chapterising it all as well. at the moment. I don't know why, but again, we've got all this, you know, at first glance you could say a lot of this is unnecessary. Even this, is it necessary? But we're well into your multiverse now. You're well into it. I mean, for me it's a mystical realm, but I'm using the word multiverse, you know, loosely to just keep people involved. You know, double page spread with panels. Nice, you know, figure works better here now. And then gone again. And I know it's all getting twisted and warped and all that, but I think it's just a bit, you know, just not sure on that one. This for me seems like a bit of a Jack Kirby tribute. Maybe even Steranko, Jim Steranko thrown in. I don't know what really, what artistic. I just see so much in this artwork, which is why I fell in love with it. I literally fell in love with this art style. Even a bit of Philippe Drouillet, a French artist from back in the day, done some sci-fi stuff I can see here. Anyway, I won't gush about that no more. I'm going to end it there. I know I've kind of skipped 2 decades, but really the in-between stuff I weren't very much interested in. But again, you haven't seen any fisticuffs, have you? You've not seen any fisticuffs at all. All you've seen is magic and weirdness, and that is why I love this character so much. So that's the latest one. That is your latest Doctor Strange. All I would say is give it a go. Give it a go. If you like the weird and wonderful, I kind of feel like I'm not speaking to maybe people that love the character, or maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, perhaps I should say it. If you love the first film, by the way, the second film we really do have to leave to one side. The first film, if you like the first film, I'll tell you what, and you like comics, please give this one a chance. If not, track this one down. Track this one down. That is your quintessential Doctor Strange, self-contained. It's not really a graphic novel. It's kind of too slim. You can't really call it a novel. That for me is, even though over all the collected stories from the 60s, you know, you collect all the Ditkos or whatever it is, or you collect one run of the Marvel premieres, whatever it is, this for me, this is the one that done it for me. This is the one that done it for me. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. I hope you enjoyed. Oh, just one thing before I go that I've just noticed as I've put this comic down is how glorious, look. Glorious. Just love it. Just love it. And when you get comics that you love, I can't help but just tell you all about it. And hopefully, we're not going to agree all the time, but that's comic fans for you. And on that note, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, if you really have stuck with it this long, love you, and give it a like and a subscribe. And I will see you hopefully on the next video, and maybe try a couple of these out. I'm starting to put the little boxes up with all my videos. Look, I don't know if they're already all around me now. And I will bid you adios.